Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch President, with our weekly update here on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us on this momentous week in terms of government corruption. You had the FBI director, the former FBI director, testify yesterday, and his testimony was really unbelievable in terms of the corruption he basically admitted to. We had a unbelievably, to use the word unbelievable again, we had a smoking gun email that we exposed on Hillary Clinton that I hope spurs a new criminal investigation. And we have numerous lawsuits we filed that I want to report to you on about government corruption, Obama corruption, and what's going on with the big government that's running amok here in Washington, D.C. I mean, first things first, Comey's testimony, I've been doing this work for a long time, and it was surprising and shocking even to me. The FBI director, the former FBI director, who quite apparently hates President Trump, admitted he created government memos, and they're not personal memos, they're government memos, believe you me. He took them from the FBI, which is unlawful, and then he leaked them, which is doubly unlawful. All he said with the hopes of getting a special counsel investigation, which he was able to do. So let's go back here. There's no evidence that President Trump obstructed justice, but there is evidence that Mr. Comey didn't like President Trump and put him in a situation now where people think that he's under investigation when in fact he isn't. Mr. Comey, evidently, is following the path and shares the views of Reality Winner, the accused leaker who was arrested this week. He doesn't like President Trump, so he's going to do whatever he wants. And he did exactly, in many ways, what Hillary Clinton did. He created government records and took them with him, without the permission of the FBI, presumably, when he left office. He wasn't allowed to do that. The information could have been classified, it could have been subject to executive privilege, and certainly even the president's personal privacy may have been violated by taking and then leaking those records to the media. This is pretty extraordinary stuff, and it shows you that Mr. Comey really thinks he's above the law, and he's frankly not as smart as he thinks he is, because we've talked about his willingness to let Hillary Clinton take records without accountability. Evidently, his ignorance of the law there and his refusal to enforce it now colored his own personal conduct. So I think the result of this hearing ought to be an investigation into Mr. Comey. Now, he had some other revelations as well. And this was Loretta Lynch, and this has been reported, but now he confirmed it under oath. Loretta Lynch pressured him to falsely state that the investigation was a matter, investigation of Hillary Clinton was a matter, not an investigation. Obviously, a political cover for Hillary Clinton, which raises additional questions about the Justice Department and the FBI investigation to Hillary Clinton, whether it was on the up and up. And if I were President Trump, I would take a look at Comey's testimony and order the Justice Department to audit what went on with the Clinton investigation so that it can be re-examined and, if necessary, reopened. We need an independent set of eyes looking at this, because it's clear based on his testimony that it was politicized, and he participated in this politicization. And so we need a second look. And I am gobsmacked by the FBI director so brazenly admitting to the misconduct of taking these documents and leaking them with the hopes of getting a special prosecutor. Frankly, this calls into question whether or not the special counsel was appointed in a way that can withstand scrutiny, and whether they need to rethink whether the appointment should have happened to begin with, or maybe we need a new appointee. Because as you know, or you should know if you don't, the special counsel is Robert Mueller, former FBI director, and I've gone over on these reports, and my colleague Chris Farrell, I'm sure, has gone over in his reports to you, how Mueller is really just another FBI guy. So we can't expect anything strong from him. But did Mueller know about Comey's illicit activities in taking these records and then leaking them? Did the Deputy Attorney General who appointed Special Counsel Mueller know about the circumstances of this. This is a real crisis. And, you know, the president has been criticized for defending himself and casting suspicion on the deep state attacks on him, the intelligence community attacks on him. But here we know now, thanks to this testimony, that it was worse than he even knew. Worse than he even knew. When you have the FBI director really acting in this abusive way simply because he hates Trump, and I just hope that the Republicans who have not defended President Trump against this lawless attempt to remove him from office and put him in jail now have had the veil lifted. And I think many of them have. I mean, it looked to me at the hearing that the Republican senators were as aghast at this behavior by Comey as I am. And I just hope they just stop attacking the president and leaving him hanging out there on his own and start defending him against this lawlessness. And this is not, again, about whether you like the president's policies or whether you like his tweets or not. It's about whether or not we're going to have an FBI and Justice Department and intelligence community that is answerable to the American people, accountable to the rule of law. Or are we going to have the reality winner approach to government? If you hate Trump, the rules be danged, the law be danged, you can leak things, you can leak classified information, you can steal documents from the FBI. I mean, this FBI director, this former FBI director, stole FBI documents and leaked them in an effort to destroy Donald Trump. I just am aghast. And frankly, if we had an honest government and a competent government, there'd be FBI agents knocking on his door this morning, asking for, demanding access to his premises to search for any other government records he may have stolen, and to make sure the government had all the records that they're supposed to have under the law. And believe me, we're looking at this from our legal perspective because we have many Freedom of Information Act lawsuits which may have been impacted by Comey's removal of records, so the courts may be interested in that, and obviously we have ongoing FOIA requests as well. So this is a real crisis in the rule of law and really disturbing. And I know the left likes to throw out there Trump as being the guy who is a challenge to our system. No, the challenge to our system are these unelected bureaucrats and appointees who think they are above the rule of law and above the Republican form of government we have, which means that they're answerable to the president and the executive branch. This FBI director, Comey, was a menace to the rule of law, and I'm glad he's gone. I'm glad he's gone. And I hope the new FBI director that the president has nominated, I think his name is Christopher Wray, you know, he does have the typical background of the Mueller and the Comey school, but he's been out of government a long time, so hopefully he has been deprogrammed. But we need a reformer at the head of the FBI. We don't need the typical, we're going to get the FBI establishment types all back on the board and, you know, the FBI is just going to be run well. No, we need someone to go in there and clean house. Who else in the FBI knew what Mueller was up to, what Comey was up to? Did they allow him to take these records out illicitly? Boy, oh boy. I can't, you know, we've seen it all. We uncovered the Clinton emails. We uncovered the Benghazi scandal. We uncovered the IRS scandal or key elements of it. But this may take the cake in terms of recent government corruption. You know, Mr. Comey should be held accountable to the rule of law here. So enough on that. Speaking of someone else who needs to be accountable to the rule of law is Hillary Clinton. And we found this astonishing email from the records again from Abedin. I did tell you about Abedin emails last week. We had another batch of records come in, and this email stood out. There are other records we want to look through and release, but this email stood out, and we alerted the court in one of our cases about it because it was so important. Mrs. Clinton wrote an email to one of her friends, and she wrote the following in this email. This was in 2009. Against the advice of the security hawks, I still do carry my berry, but am prohibited from using it in my office, where I spend most of my time when I'm not on a plane or in a no-coverage country. Again, against the evidence of security hawks, I still use my BlackBerry. Now, you remember Mr. Comey saying that it was Mrs. Clinton didn't meet the standards. She didn't have the intent. They didn't have evidence of intent First of all, that isn't the law. But let's pretend it is the law. How is this not evidence of intent? And by the way, we already had found emails showing that she had been warned earlier that week by security officials not to use this BlackBerry because it was a problem in terms of security. They said any unclassified BlackBerry is highly vulnerable in any setting to remotely and covertly monitoring conversations, retrieving email, and exploiting calendars. So she placed the national security at risk, and she did it with contempt. She makes fun of the security people who are trying to protect us and her by calling them security hawks. And she just continued to use her BlackBerry because she didn't care, because she knew. I think the evidence shows that she wasn't going to turn over any emails to anyone. And Judicial Watch fixed that. But we are fighting in court to get more information and more testimony from her. In fact, we want to depose her in one of our cases. So this issue isn't over. And Comey's testimony yesterday, again, highlights the fact that the Justice Department needs to take another look at the Clinton email and related scandals. Now, what I love about Judicial Watch, and I do love Judicial Watch, not just because I'm the president of Judicial Watch, is because we're doing so much great work. And I say that as objectively speaking as I can. We are, if there's an issue you care about, I guarantee you we have a Freedom of Information Act request, lawsuit, or direct litigation on it. You name it: election integrity, immigration, Fast and Furious, Benghazi, IRS, national security, the border, the Islamist threat, the terrorist threat, Obamacare, the Second Amendment. You name it, we're investigating it. If there's an issue of controversy, we're usually asking questions about it. And to that end, we just sued the State Department and the Treasury Department for records on the $400 million cash payment that President Obama gave the terrorists in Iran. Now, you remember that was a secret payment that was sent to them on cash. The cash was literally put on wooden pallets and flown secretly to Iran. And it was obviously not only improper on its face, but they released hostages after they got the money. So it was ransom. So we want the details on that. And of course, it was only the first installment on $1.7 billion in shakedown money that the Iranians extracted from the Obama administration for their terrible, terrible nuke deal. So Judicial Watch is asking for records on this. We asked the State Department back in August of 2016 for these records, and we still haven't gotten them. And I continue to be frustrated by the Trump administration's just allowing the Obama way to continue when it comes to transparency. And I tell you, all of this shows why transparency is the way out in terms of getting the swamp drained. Expose what goes on, whether it be the Iranian deals, whether it be the Russia issues that we've been talking about, the Clinton email issues. The government is fighting us as if Obama's the president and not President Trump. No wonder he's so angry. No wonder he's so angry, because I suspect that he knows about this, and the agencies are just going to do what they want to do. So this is an urgent issue. And Judicial Watch will continue to file the lawsuits against the Trump administration to find out not only what the Trump administration is up to, but what the prior administration's damage to the American public was. Also, we have a lawsuit we filed again on education policy. We filed a lawsuit against the Education Department. Now, they had a special program under the Obama administration. They gave $7 billion to the nation's schools, and they analyzed the impact of what that $7 billion was, and it had no discernible impact, which raises the opportunity for those activists who want school choice and more freedom in our public school system. So we want this information, and again, this is an opportunity for the Trump administration to show what went on during the Obama administration, get that accountability, and we're not asking for anything inappropriate. We just want them to follow the law here and expose what went on. The massive waste of money by the federal government in our failing school system, the left-wing approach to centralized schooling and things like that. Of course, they don't want to give us the details on it. because it would allow those who want school choice and vouchers and things like that to make their case more easily. We're also in court for the veterans. Now, you may recall we represented Robert Rosebrock, a veteran who was targeted for prosecution by the Veterans Affairs and the Justice Department for placing flags, allegedly, on a Veteran Affairs facility in Los Angeles. Well, this facility is like 338 acres, and the Veterans Administration promised to convert that to housing for homeless vets. That is, to use that acreage for housing, and of course it hasn't moved forward in any substantial way. So we asked for documents, got the runaround, and so we had to sue in federal court to find out what the holdup is and to get the records about what is actually going on. So they've got this massive facility in the heart of LA that they should be using for the benefit of veterans, in which they're supposed to, under the terms of the under an agreement, and obviously and also the terms of a what the federal government deeded it for in 1888. And as of now, there are some Veterans Affairs building on the campus, but there's a soccer field there and other silly uses of the facilities. And this is why our client was so upset about what was going on, and why he's out there virtually every week trying to highlight the abuses here. So again, another important FOIA lawsuit. Also, we were in court this week fighting the Trump administration, unfortunately. We had an appellate court ruling over whether or not we could get the names, the actual names of illegal alien criminals released by the Obama administration. Why, pray tell, are we fighting for that? I don't know. Ask the Trump administration. Why are they opposing our effort to get these records? And the Ninth Circuit, the lower courts ruled that we couldn't get the identities, but there was another court ruling that said, of course you can get the identities. This was in the First Circuit. These people have been arrested or convicted. It's a matter of public record. And certainly if they're being released without being deported, there's a public interest in figuring that out. So hopefully we'll get a good ruling there, but either way, we're prepared to fight further. And along the lines of immigration, you remember those great reports the Trump administration were releasing on the sanctuary cities. Well, there were a lot of complaints about it from the usual suspects, and maybe even from folks who thought they were doing the right thing but still being put on the list of sanctuary cities. So the administration just stopped doing them. And we want to know why that happened and what were the complaints that led to that being stopped. So there are a lot of issues out there that Judicial Watch is investigating. Again, not only about the conduct of the prior administration, but just what this administration is up to. But we're facing a rule of law crisis here in Washington, D.C. You can tell by our lawsuits where we have to sue just to get basic information about what the government's up to, but also with the extraordinary testimony of Mr. Comey. I tell you, this scandal is getting worse and worse, not for Donald Trump, but for the deep state. That's what the Comey's testimony is about. And Judicial Watch, you can bet, will be pursuing these issues through the Freedom of Information Act and other legal avenues to find out more and try, if we can, to stop the lawless assault on the President of the United States, not because President Trump we like his policies or anything like that. It's because we can't allow illegal behavior by government officials in this seditious way to lead to these abuses of law and the Justice Department, the FBI, and their intelligence capabilities. It's a real crisis, and no one else in Washington wants to talk about it like this, other frankly than President Trump, but you can trust Judicial Watch to tell you the truth on this and do the good work on it. Thanks again for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week with more updates, more lawsuits, and more accountability from your watchdog friends here at Judicial Watch. Thank you.